Okay, Scott, how's your first week gone back at Fulham?
Yeah, it's gone pretty well. Different, obviously. Last time I was here, I was running around the field like the other lads. So it's a little bit different. I'm now standing on the side, barking at them to run quicker. So in that sense, it's quite nice. So yeah, not too stressful.
You started doing your coaching badges long before you retired. And presumably, it was always the plan to get into this sort of thing then.
Yeah, it was always an ambition of mine really, and obviously I started my coaching badges way before I even joined Fulham when I was at Spurs, and took the time to obviously crack on then. And obviously when I came to Fulham as well, it was something which I continued. And yeah, obviously when you played football for so long and you start coming towards the end of your career, you look at avenues to go down to obviously then kick on, because football you're a young retired really, so you have to look at that. And obviously I've got a passion for coaching and that side of the game really, so it was something I wanted to take up.
We go back a year, Fulham fans were quite keen for you to stay on playing for another year. Were you tempted by that, or did you just want to get into the coaching?
I was tempted, but I think when you get to a certain age, and I was at that age, I think if I wouldn't have I was struggling with my ankle really for probably the last 2 years, but really struggled the last season before I retired really. And sometimes it can be a little bit depressing waking up in the morning in a bit of pain or taking tablets. So obviously, yeah, I decided to take that decision. And to be honest with you, I've not really missed it too much at the moment, and I think that's probably because obviously I'm out of a bit of pain and the stress of obviously trying to perform when you're not right. So yeah, it's been good. I've had a good year.
How good an experience has it been for you personally, coaching Spurs under-18 team?
Been a massive experience for me, massive learning curve, very different. Obviously you play football for so long, had a career of 20 years, and when you go on a football pitch it's pretty much autopilot. You obviously pick up what you pick up, but trying to relay that and teach that to players and that element of things is very different, and it's a different skill set really. So I took the decision that I felt that I probably needed to go and learn that side of things and try and become as best I can. And it was a good opportunity for me really. Went to Spurs, where developing younger players maybe could afford to make mistakes because you're not really in the spotlight of it, and learn from their mistakes was a massive learning ground for me really.
I know it's only been a week, but how different is it coaching these first teamers compared to the kids?
Coaching sense, obviously, it's not that different in terms of putting on sessions or stuff like that. I suppose it's the day-to-day interaction and dealing with players. Last year I was dealing with young boys, 15, 16, 17-year-old boys. What we've all been that age once before, and you're probably dealing with a lot of problems which are quite young and immature, and you're trying to nurture them boys and trying to give them some values and some grounding, which obviously is going to help them try and become professional footballers. Whereas at a first team level you're at the cutting edge, and you'd like to think the things I was dealing with last year I wouldn't be dealing with as with grown professional men, and I'm sure that will be the case, and the approach is probably going to be very different.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your relationship was like with Slavisa when you were a player here, and if that dynamic's changed at all now?
Yeah, I mean when the gaffer first came in, I was obviously captain. I was a more experienced player in the squad really, so I was probably not the go-to person, but I was the one who probably had the most interaction with the manager from playing side, from the changing room. I tried to manage and try to bridge that gap between staff, managing, and obviously as a player. So I had a close connection with him in that sense really. So yeah, and obviously now as working alongside and working as part of his staff is probably going to be quite similar in that sense. Obviously, can I be that bridge between changing room and obviously himself? I'm sure I can. Obviously, only being retired for 18 months now and being around faces what are very familiar with me in terms of the current playing squad. Obviously, there's a few additions which I didn't play with, but yeah, hopefully I can be a help in that sense.
Do you think because of the standing you held when you were a player here, you were a go-to guy as you mentioned, the players obviously respect you. Do you think now you've made that step up to coach, do you think that makes the transition a bit smoother, because it's presumably not massively different in that respect?
No, definitely. I think obviously it's probably a lot easier. Certainly, it's a lot easier for me because I'm coming into an environment and coming into a facility which I'm familiar with. For instance, you guys, just everyone around the staff, and obviously the players as well, are familiar faces. So, you know, it's always hard when you go into a new environment, workplace, not just as a footballer, but any line of work, where you've got to go into new people, a new setting, understand where the boundaries are, and know what they want from you and what they don't. Whereas, of course, I've still got them, but it's certainly a lot easier for me, and that will make the transition a lot easier.
Everyone could see what Fulham meant to you from the video message you sent our boys before the playoff final.
Yeah.
Can you put into words what you were feeling when we secured promotion?
I mean, I was away on tour with the under-18s in Holland, and I was in a hotel that didn't have Sky, so I was watching the game on my iPhone, which was, as you can imagine, it was like probably up to there looking in. So I mean, I was ecstatic, really. I sensed at the end of last year that things were pretty close, and I'm sure everyone could see that in terms of getting knocked out by Reading. Obviously didn't start the season too well, but you know, the longer the season went on, for me personally, it would have been a real shame, and if we didn't secure it, and the lads did. And if there is one way to do it, you want to do it that way. I mean, it's not good for the nerves, and I'm sure the manager and the players are saying, but I mean, if you can guarantee one way you're going to go up, how do you want to do it? Win the league or go all the way to the playoff final? It would be that way. So really pleased for everyone, really, not just the players. I was pleased for the whole club, because it's had a tough few years, really. So it was good to see everyone smiling and getting what they deserve, really.
And the way we did it, the football we played, got us back in the Premier League. It's such an exciting time to be part of them, and you must agree, otherwise you wouldn't be here.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, last year the football, personally, you know, I felt it was the best football being played in the division, and you know, I was here under the manager for a few years, and there's a clear identity of the way the team want to play. You know, it's something which I love. You know, it's something which as a coach, and certainly me going on and developing as a coach is certainly things what I look to try and do as well. So it's helped in that sense. And will things change this year? I'm sure there'll be slight changes, because you're going into arguably one of the best leagues and the toughest leagues in the world. So I'm sure there will be, but there'll be some clear principles and clear foundations which probably won't change.
And you know the Premier League better than most people. How much are you looking forward to this challenge, and what do you think Fulham can expect this year?
Well, it's a massive challenge, first and foremost. I think we all recognise that. Manager, staff, players. Like I said, the biggest league in the world. It'll be tough. You're coming up against probably the best players. Certainly, in some cases, it will be tough. But like I said, it's a challenge, and it's a challenge what we're all relishing. How hard it will be, I think we all relish that challenge, and this is what these players have strived to do. They want to come and compete at the best stadiums against the best players, really. So this is their opportunity. I suppose ultimately, along the way, what's hard is getting there. Getting there is hard. What's even harder is staying there, and really that needs to be the next motivation for everyone, really, because it's going to be difficult, but it's a challenge which we'll relish.